Hi, this is the second recording for the pants, and so we've got everything appended into ZBrush, and so what we're going to do is just go ahead and hide everything that we don't need, and probably don't need that, but let's go ahead and put our pants, our low poly pants, and we're going to move this up. By pressing T, this moves it up. And so we want our pants up here and selected, and we want the eye wink on the bottom. So we can kind of see it, but it's not selected, so we want our pants up top. So I'm going to go ahead and hit frame. So you can see our low poly is there, and like I said before, kind of smoothed it out. I wasn't really happy with the way it was in ZBrush before. It was really polygonal. And so you can see our pants here, these are low poly, but this is what we're going to use into the gaming engine. Again, we're going to bake in the texture map, and also we're going to bake in the normal map. So we're going to go over that really quickly. But right now we're going to do the project all. So we have our low poly sitting on top of our high mesh, and we've removed the buttons. And so I was doing it before, having a really hard time doing a projectile on the buttons. It just kept looking awful and awful and awful. I was like, uh, thought of an alternative, just keep the buttons separate and keep them nice and sharp versus a really bad looking version. All right, so you can see I have that selected. You can see it's black and then the eye wink underneath it. And then basically this is in your subtool, and then we're just going to scroll down, and there's a button right here called project. All right, and before I was doing a Dynamesh, and then I was also doing another process and projecting on there, so that was not working out, but I think this is going to work out better. So what you want to do before that is on your pants, you're going to go to geometry, and we're going to subdivide it 3 times. All right, so we're going to go 1, 2, maybe 3. I went 4. That's okay. So we're going to go up, make sure those pants are selected up top, and your eye wink is on the bottom. And we're going to do a project all. Before you do that, I'd go ahead, you could do a 0.1. I want to try a 0.2, hit enter on the distance. This is kind of goes out beyond the mesh and kind of grabs what's out here. So I do a distance of 0.2. Normally people do a 0.1. You can experiment with that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit project all, and you can see kind of hugs. The first one, I hit it one more time. All right, and so now we're going to go ahead, turn off our eye wink on the bottom. Oops. You can kind of see what's happened to our bottom of our pants here. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead, go up to my geometry. Let's see. So we have 4 of these. So we have D, 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 and D. This is a 4th subdivision. You can see kind of what it did to the pants. Gives you a little bit of a starting point to go in and definitely work on modeling this a little bit more. It still has a very polygonal look to it. I would go ahead and what I'm doing is just hitting shift really quickly, smooth this out. Smooth out the pants. Now our crease is not as good, but I would just go ahead and use a couple of these pinching tools and create a different a seam here. And then when we go back and turn on our buttons, things should start looking pretty good. Okay, so you may have to get your move tool and pull the pants up just a little bit to do a little shrinkage. So work on that. Let's go to the move tool. Let's see where it is. use a pretty big brush. Oops, don't use that. Make sure your pants are selected. All right, make sure pull these up so they're sitting in the right position. But I would just, again, spend a little extra time and model the pants. You've got a nice form here, but the crease is not there. The buttonholes are not there, but I'm a little bit happier with this because it's projected on there correctly. So if we hit Shift D, go ahead and see what that looks like lower level. All right, and so now you're probably ready to start texturing it. So you want to go to your lowest level, and we're going to go to the Z plugin, and we're going to go to UV Master. All right. Again, these things keeps popping up because of the recording. So we're going to do unwrap, and we can do symmetry is fine. And so what we do when we do the unwrap, basically kind of automatically unwraps it. We could go into Maya and UV map it correctly so that it kind of sits flat. I may do another tutorial for you that will showcase that. So as we bring this over and we do a projectile, it'll keep that UV mapping. All right, so if I go a D up on the levels of this, and let's say I want to start painting it. So we're in a Z add, we want to turn that off. We have our RGB on, and we'll go ahead and find some sort of painting tool. And so you can do a spotlight. I think we've done that with the Old Man project, but then you can start coloring this object. So you can see for some reason it's on the move tool, standard tool, still doing a Z add for some reason. Could be because I'm recording it. Go back to RGB. Okay, select some crazy color. Okay, so when you have a hard time painting, you want to go to Polypaint, hit Colorize. That will allow you to start painting. Right now I have a huge brush. If you feel comfortable with painting it here, but if you want to do Photoshop, we can definitely do that too. All right, so you can see I'm starting to paint this color tone on here. If you want landmarks, you can do landmarks too. Go through here, get different colors. I'm doing this really quickly. Obviously, you don't want to make horrible purple dots on the pants, but again, these could be landmarks for you. You want to spend your time. Again, I would use Spotlight, and you're going up to your higher division here. And if you want to see what this looks like, you would go to your texture map, and we're going to create. And we're going to create the UV map of what that looks like. So we hit New from Polypaint. And you can see real quickly if I roll over, this is kind of what it looks like. What the UV master did, it just kind of flayed open. So this is, I'll try to roll over it again. So it's not really allowing me to roll over it and talk about it. So you can see kind of where the legging is, where the top of the pants and kind of the crotch is. And so when you're done with that, you can clone the texture. And so that brings it over here, and we can actually export it out and go to texture and basically go click on it. But what you want to do is flip it, especially if we're going to bring it into Maya, because everything gets flipped and then we just export it out. Sorry, the recording's messing up. So we're going to go to textures. And you have your texture that you want selected. Then we hit export. Let's call it pant texture. And you can save it as a PSD if you want, or JPEG or PNG, whatever. And hit save. Okay. And just hit OK or enter. All right. And so that's how you can bring the textures. So if you export these pants, you would have that. So I'm going to stop here real quick. I'm going to show you maybe a little bit of Spotlight, or maybe even how to make a normal map, so you can see what that looks like once you export out your diffuse map, and then you'll want to make a normal map.